Decades peeled away like layers of old paint, each year dulling the vibrant memory of a life tragically cut short, until a shocking announcement ripped through the quiet corners of Oregon. A cold case, frozen in time for over 35 years, had finally cracked open, and the identity of the perpetrator sent seismic waves of disbelief through a community that had long since given up hope. This wasn't just another arrest. It was a ghost from the past, a name whispered in hushed tones, now dragged into the harsh light of justice. The revelation wasn't a stranger, a shadowy figure from the fringes, but someone deeply embedded, someone whose betrayal would echo through generations. At the heart of this enduring mystery was Daniel Brooks, a name synonymous with innovation and passion in the burgeoning Portland art scene of the 1980s. Daniel was more than just a photographer. He was an artist with an almost spiritual connection to his craft. His lens captured the soul of the city, transforming mundane street corners into evocative landscapes and fleeting moments into eternal narratives. Rising quickly through the ranks, his work was gaining national attention, promising a brilliant future. He had a natural charisma, a quick wit, and a genuine warmth that drew people to him. Friends, colleagues, and fellow artists adored him, and his personal life, while private, seemed as vibrant and promising as his career. He was a regular fixture at gallery openings, always eager to discuss art, exchange ideas, and champion new talent. His apartment in an old Victorian, filled with prints, cameras, and the scent of developing chemicals, was a sanctuary for creativity, a testament to his unwavering dedication. The night of May 15, 1987, was supposed to be a triumph. The prestigious Renwick Gallery in downtown Portland was hosting the opening of Urban Echoes, Daniel's most ambitious exhibition to date. The air crackled with excitement, the clinking of champagne glasses punctuating conversations filled with praise for Daniel's groundbreaking work. He moved through the crowded room, a beaming smile on his face, accepting congratulations, his eyes alight with the joy of seeing his vision realized. His mood was buoyant, a mix of exhilaration and relief after months of intense preparation. The future felt boundless, limitless, brimming with possibility. As the evening mooned down, close to midnight, Daniel bid farewell to friends, promising to celebrate properly in the coming days. He stepped out of the elegant gallery, the cool night air a stark contrast to the warmth of the crowded room, still buzzing from the success of the night. But that triumph tragically morphed into horror within minutes. A single gunshot shattered the stillness of the urban night. Daniel Brooks fell, his life bleeding out onto the cold pavement just steps from the gallery doors that had celebrated his brilliance moments before. The first witness, a gallery staff member locking up, discovered his body, and a piercing scream tore through the quiet street. Panic erupted. Confusion gave way to a sickening realization as more people emerged, drawn by the commotion. Hysteria spread through the remaining few, their joyful memories of the evening instantly replaced by a ghastly scene. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, signaling the arrival of a grim new reality. The Portland Police Department arrived swiftly, transforming the vibrant art district into a sterile crime scene. Yellow tape cordoned off the area, flashing lights painting stark shadows against the historic buildings. Detectives meticulously combed every inch, but initial findings offered few clear leads. No weapon, no clear eyewitnesses to the shooting itself, only the lingering shock of those who had seen Daniel alive moments before. The urgency was palpable. A beloved artist, a rising star, gunned down in what appeared to be a senseless act. The pressure to solve such a high-profile case was immense, but the trail was cold almost before it began. The grief that followed was immense, a collective gasp of pain that rippled through Portland's close-knit art community and beyond. Daniel's family, devastated by the sudden and brutal loss, grappled with an unbearable void. Friends mourned not just a talented artist, but a kind soul, a vibrant presence taken too soon. The senselessness of it all gnawed at everyone, leaving a scar that time could not easily heal. Please, if you find this story compelling, consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into true crime. The initial investigation quickly hit significant hurdles, transforming what seemed like a straightforward murder into a baffling mystery. Forensics could offer little beyond the type of weapon used, a small caliber handgun, but no identifiable fingerprints were found on or near Daniel's body that matched any known criminals in their database. There were no clear witnesses to the actual shooting, only those who heard the shot and discovered the horrific aftermath. Without a weapon, without a clear motive, and with no immediate suspects, detectives found themselves sifting through shadows, trying to construct a narrative from fragmented observations and the bewildered accounts of gallery-goers. Each potential lead, from a vague description of a fleeting figure to a discarded cigarette butt, seemed to dissolve under scrutiny, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. The crime scene, despite meticulous processing, yielded frustratingly little tangible evidence to pinpoint a killer. The public outcry was immediate and intense. Daniel Brooks wasn't just a local artist, he was a symbol of Portland's creative spirit, and his violent death ignited a fierce demand for justice. Local news channels ran continuous segments, featuring tearful interviews with his friends and colleagues, echoing the community's outrage and bewilderment. Editorials in the Oregonian called for swift action, condemning the senseless violence and urging anyone with information, no matter how small, to come forward. Reward money was quickly pooled by concerned citizens and art patrons, hoping to entice a tip that could break the case open. The pressure on the Portland Police Department was immense, a constant drumbeat for answers that, frustratingly, they simply didn't have. For Daniel's family, the passage of weeks into months brought an agonizing blend of grief and increasingly profound frustration. His parents, still reeling from the shock of losing their son, clung to every police update, every news report, desperate for any sign of progress. Each phone call from detectives, often bringing no new information, felt like another punch to their already aching hearts. His sister, deeply protective of Daniel, channeled her sorrow into relentless advocacy, writing letters to the mayor, appealing to the public through local media, her voice cracking with pain but firm in its demand for accountability. The silence from the investigation, coupled with the fading public attention as new headlines emerged, began to chip away at their hope, replaced by a gnawing despair that his killer might never be found. Investigators pursued various theories with dogged determination, each one meticulously explored before ultimately leading to a dead end. Was it a robbery gone wrong? Daniel always carried a small amount of cash, but his wallet was found untouched, ruling out that immediate conclusion. What about a jilted lover? Detectives delved into his personal relationships, interviewing past romantic interests, but found no one with a clear motive or a suspicious alibi. Could it have been a professional rivalry, perhaps an envious artist or a disgruntled gallery owner? The art community was tight-knit, and whispers of jealousy occasionally surfaced, but none of these theories could be substantiated. Every person of interest interviewed, every alibi checked, every potential motive examined, yielded nothing concrete, leaving the police baffled and the family distraught. As the summer of 1987 faded into autumn, and then into the harsh Oregon winter, the active investigation slowly, painfully, wound down. Without any new leads, without a suspect, and with the initial fervor dying out, the Daniel Brooks murder case was officially declared cold. This proclamation, delivered with somber reluctance by police, was a devastating blow to everyone who had held on to the hope of a quick resolution. The profound disappointment and despair that settled over Daniel's family and friends was a heavy shroud, an acknowledgement that justice, for now, had been denied. The initial outrage of the community transformed into a quiet, lingering sadness, a void where answers should have been. The weight of unanswered questions hung heavy over Portland, particularly within its artistic circles. Daniel Brooks, the vibrant photographer whose life was so senselessly cut short, remained a ghost, his memory honored at annual tributes, his unfulfilled potential a constant reminder of the tragedy. Who had done this? Why? The identity of his killer became a local legend, a persistent, unsettling mystery that fueled countless late-night conversations and whispered theories. The community could move on, but Daniel's name, and the unsolved riddle of his death, would forever remain etched into the city's collective consciousness, a testament to a life lost and justice eluding capture. Decades passed, blurring the sharp edges of grief but never fully erasing the deep chasm left by Daniel Brooks' absence. For his family, the unsolved murder was a constant, dull ache, a phantom limb of sorrow that influenced every holiday, every family gathering, every quiet moment of reflection. His parents aged, their hair silvering, their steps slowing, but their memories of Daniel remained vivid, untarnished by time, yet always tinged with the bitterness of injustice. Friends moved on, pursued their careers, started families, but the shadow of that dreadful night in 1987 occasionally fell across their lives, a stark reminder of the brilliant light extinguished too soon. Portland's art scene continued to evolve, new talents emerged, galleries opened and closed, but Daniel's name would resurface every few years, often in retrospectives or casual mentions, always accompanied by the unspoken question, who killed him? The world kept spinning, life continued its relentless march, yet for those who loved Daniel, a part of their existence remained forever paused on that fateful night, waiting for an answer that seemed increasingly unlikely to arrive. Yet, unseen by many, the world of forensic science was undergoing a quiet revolution. What was once considered cutting edge in 1987, rudimentary fingerprint analysis, basic ballistics, and limited trace evidence examination, had by the turn of the millennium transformed into an array of sophisticated tools. DNA profiling, once a distant scientific concept, became a powerful and precise identification method. Advanced microscopy could reveal hidden details in fibers or paint chips. Digital databases allowed for cross-referencing unprecedented amounts of information. Ballistics comparison moved beyond simple visual matching to intricate computer-aided analysis capable of identifying minute imperfections in weapon mechanisms. These technological leaps offered a glimmer of hope, suggesting that evidence once deemed inconclusive might, under a new lens, yield critical breakthroughs. The scientific landscape had shifted dramatically, providing a potential pathway back into the coldest of cases. Throughout these long years, Daniel's family remained a quiet, persistent force for justice. They never allowed the case to truly die, periodically reaching out to the Portland Police Department, not with anger, but with an unwavering, dignified plea. Their calls, their letters, served as gentle reminders, ensuring Daniel's name was never entirely relegated to the forgotten files. They advocated for the case to be reopened, for new eyes to examine the old evidence, holding on to a fragile hope that advancements in technology, or a fresh perspective could finally unlock the truth. Their steadfast commitment was a testament to their enduring love for Daniel and their belief that, no matter how much time passed, his killer should ultimately face accountability for their heinous act. In the early 2010s, a new generation of investigators, often fueled by a passion for justice and a belief in the power of modern forensics, began to systematically review the city's cold cases. Among them was Detective Sarah Miller, a tenacious and meticulous officer with a keen interest in historical crimes. When Daniel Brooks' file landed on her desk, thick with decades of unanswered questions, it immediately captivated her. She was struck not only by the tragedy of the case but by the profound impact it had clearly left on the family and the local community. Detective Miller approached the cold case with fresh eyes, reviewing every police report, every witness statement, every photograph from the initial investigation. She saw not just faded documents, but the echoes of a vibrant life brutally cut short, and the persistent hopes of a family yearning for peace. Her first task was to methodically re-examine every piece of physical evidence still preserved from the 1987 investigation. While much of the initial evidence had yielded little, Detective Miller knew that modern forensic techniques could extract information unimaginable at the time of the original crime. She meticulously catalogued trace evidence, including fibers found near Daniel's body, microscopic fragments from the scene, and especially the single spent bullet casing recovered. This casing, once analyzed with the limited technology of the 80s, could now be subjected to advanced ballistics comparisons against a vast national database, potentially linking it to other crimes or even specific firearms. She also flagged several pieces of biological material that had been carefully preserved, understanding that DNA analysis, a frontier in 1987, could now be a game-changer. Every item, no matter how small or insignificant it once seemed, was given a new scrutiny, a modern scientific lens applied to ancient clues. It was during this painstaking re-examination that a glimmer of hope emerged, a faint but distinct signal from the past. A microscopic fiber, barely visible to the naked eye, had been meticulously documented and preserved from Daniel's clothing during the initial autopsy. In 1987, it was simply noted as miscellaneous fiber. Now, under advanced electron microscopy and chemical analysis, this tiny strand revealed a unique synthetic composition and dye pattern that was highly unusual. This was not a common fiber. Its specific characteristics strongly suggested it originated from a specialized garment or item, potentially linking it directly to the assailant. This small, forgotten detail, overlooked for decades, suddenly transformed into a critical new piece of the puzzle, providing the first tangible, modern-day breakthrough in the long-dormant case. It was during this painstaking re-examination that a glimmer of hope emerged, a faint but distinct signal from the past. A microscopic fiber, barely visible to the naked eye, had been meticulously documented and preserved from Daniel's clothing during the initial autopsy. In 1987, it was simply noted as miscellaneous fiber. Now, under advanced electron microscopy and chemical analysis, this tiny strand revealed a unique synthetic composition and dye pattern that was highly unusual. This was not a common fiber. Its specific characteristics strongly suggested it originated from a specialized garment or item, potentially linking it directly to the assailant. This small, forgotten detail, overlooked for decades, suddenly transformed into a critical new piece of the puzzle, providing the first tangible, modern-day breakthrough in the long-dormant case. This seemingly innocuous fiber became the linchpin for the renewed investigation. Detective Miller immediately understood its significance. The lab reports detailed its highly specific properties, making it incredibly rare for 1987. It wasn't a common cotton or polyester. It was a blend used in a particular type of industrial uniform or specialized protective gear. This focused the investigation dramatically. Instead of a random attacker, they were now looking for someone who would have had access to such unique clothing around the time of Daniel's murder. Armed with this new information, Detective Miller and her team revisited every single witness statement, every initial suspect interview, every detail from the original case file, specifically searching for any mention or implication of someone connected to industries that might use such a material. The vast, unfocused net of the original inquiry now had a defined shape, a clear direction. They cross-referenced old employment records and union lists from the 1980s, looking for individuals who worked in specific sectors active in Portland back then. The painstaking archival work was immense, but the potential reward was unparalleled. The new lead quickly directed the investigation toward a narrower set of suspects. The unique fiber pointed them towards individuals who had worked in specific roles within Portland's industrial or municipal waste management sectors during the late 1980s. One name, in particular, kept surfacing with increasing frequency: a man named George Harding. He had been briefly interviewed in the initial investigation because he worked at a nearby factory, but his alibi, though flimsy, had been accepted due to the lack of other compelling evidence. Now, that same factory's uniform specifications from 1987, painstakingly unearthed from city archives, revealed a striking correlation. The factory's maintenance and night shift staff uniforms featured a synthetic fiber blend identical to the one found on Daniel Brooks. What sealed the focus on Harding was a secondary detail in his original interview. He had mentioned having been walking home from work near the gallery that night, a detail previously dismissed as coincidental. With Harding now firmly in their sights, the police employed meticulous and covert methods to gather more information. They initiated discreet surveillance, observing his daily routines, his interactions, and his general demeanor. Undercover officers were deployed to his neighborhood, subtly interviewing longtime residents about his past, without raising any suspicion that he was the focus of a cold case murder inquiry. They scoured public records, deep diving into his financial history, any arrests, or even traffic violations from the past decades. Every scrap of information was carefully Catalogued, pieces of a decades-old puzzle slowly being reassembled. The goal was to build a comprehensive profile, looking for any inconsistencies, any undisclosed connections, or any behavior that might betray a hidden past. They even discreetly collected discarded items from his trash to perform comparative DNA analysis if applicable, though for now, the fiber was their strongest link. The process of building a robust case against George Harding was slow and painstaking, a testament to the challenges of solving a historical crime. Every piece of new evidence needed to be meticulously corroborated and integrated with the fragmented information from 1987. They re-interviewed surviving witnesses from the gallery opening, gently guiding their memories, seeing if any recalled seeing Harding in the vicinity, perhaps in a uniform, or exhibiting any unusual behavior. They cross-referenced his known addresses with Daniel Brooks' movements, looking for any undisclosed proximity or connection. The ballistics team revisited the spent bullet casing, comparing it with samples from other crimes, and meticulously researched if Harding had ever owned a firearm that matched the caliber. Each successful step, each verified detail, tightened the net around him, transforming him from a person of interest into the prime suspect. George Harding, now in his early 60s, had lived an unassuming life since 1987. He had remained in Portland, working various blue-collar jobs, eventually retiring a few years prior. He was known in his small community as a quiet, somewhat solitary man, a creature of habit. He had a small circle of acquaintances but no close friends, and he had never married. There was no public record of any artistic inclination, nor any obvious connection to the vibrant art scene Daniel Brooks inhabited. His life seemed utterly disconnected from the world of galleries and photographers, making the emerging evidence of his presence at the crime scene even more perplexing. He harbored no criminal record beyond a few minor traffic infractions from decades ago. His past was exceptionally clean, which made the accusations now quietly forming against him all the more shocking to anyone who knew even a little about him. As the investigation continued, an almost unbearable tension settled over the small group of detectives working the case. They knew they were on the cusp of a major breakthrough, a revelation that would send shockwaves through Portland. Yet they had to maintain absolute secrecy. The public, still oblivious, went about their daily lives, remembering Daniel Brooks as a tragic loss, a perpetual mystery. But behind the closed doors of the cold case unit, the pieces were falling into place, creating a narrative that would finally explain the horror of that spring night in 1987. The anticipation was palpable, a quiet storm brewing before the inevitable, dramatic unveiling of truth. The quiet storm finally broke on a crisp Tuesday morning. George Harding was leaving his modest suburban home, seemingly on his way to his usual morning coffee run, when two unmarked police sedans converged on his driveway. Detectives, stern-faced and purposeful, emerged from the vehicles. "George Harding," one of them stated, his voice calm but authoritative. "You're under arrest for the murder of Daniel Brooks in 1987. There was no struggle, no dramatic chase. Harding, a man who had lived for decades beneath a cloak of normalcy, simply froze, his face a mask of disbelief, then a flicker of something unreadable, perhaps recognition, perhaps resignation. The swift, precise operation involved months of planning, ensuring a clean arrest with minimal public spectacle, yet the gravity of the moment hung heavy in the air, a silent prelude to the monumental revelation that was about to unfold. He was cuffed, read his rights, and carefully escorted into an awaiting car, the privacy of his quiet neighborhood shattered by the stark reality of justice decades delayed. The announcement came shortly after, delivered by the Portland police chief in a press conference that immediately captured national headlines. "Today," the chief declared, his voice resonating with a mix of triumph and solemnity, "after 36 years, we have made an arrest in the murder of Daniel Brooks. George Harding has been taken into custody and charged with his murder." A collective gasp seemed to ripple across Portland and beyond. The name George Harding was not one familiar to the art community, nor to the general public in connection with such a high-profile, unsolved crime. The years had softened the sharp edges of the tragedy, turning Daniel Brooks' murder into a historical footnote for many, a lingering ache for few. Now a living, breathing suspect, a man who had walked among them for all these years, was identified, and the shock was profound. It wasn't a stranger from another town, not a shadowy figure from a criminal underworld, but an ordinary man who had lived an ordinary life right there in their midst. The community's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Social media exploded with discussions, old newspaper articles were pulled from archives, and local news channels ran continuous retrospectives on Daniel Brooks' life and the cold case. There was a mix of disbelief and a strange sort of vindication. People recounted where they were when they heard about Daniel's death in 1987, the profound sadness that had gripped the city. Now, an entirely new conversation began. Who was George Harding? How could he have kept such a secret for so long? The unexpected nature of the arrest, the reveal that the alleged killer had been an unremarkable citizen, caused widespread introspection and a renewed, often unsettling, look at the quiet lives being led around them. The city was suddenly alight with a renewed sense of connection to a decades-old tragedy, fueled by the staggering twist in its narrative. For Daniel's family, the news brought a tumultuous wave of emotions. His parents, now frail and elderly, received the call from Detective Miller personally. The initial overwhelming relief of finally having an answer was quickly followed by a fresh onslaught of raw grief, anger, and a renewed sense of loss. The decades of unanswered questions had taken their toll, hardening into a weary acceptance. Now, that acceptance was shattered, replaced by the painful reality that their son's killer had been free all this time. Daniel's sister, now a woman in her late 50s, wept tears that were a bitter cocktail of sorrow and long-awaited validation. "We never gave up," she told reporters, her voice trembling. "But we never truly believed this day would come. It's a miracle, but it's also a fresh wound." The answer brought not closure, but a complex tapestry of renewed pain, intertwined with gratitude for the persistence of the investigators. During the initial interrogations, George Harding remained largely uncooperative. He listened impassively as detectives laid out the evidence, from the unique fiber found on Daniel Brooks' clothing to the re-examined ballistics. He maintained a stoic silence for the most part, occasionally offering vague denials or feigning ignorance about the specific details of that night. He claimed to have no memory of being near the gallery at the time of the shooting, contradicting his own statement from 1987. His demeanor suggested a man who had perfected the art of compartmentalization, burying a dark secret so deep it had become almost inaccessible, even to himself. Investigators noted his unsettling calm, a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil the arrest had caused throughout the city. Harding seemed to be a man who had lived with his demons for so long, they had become an ingrained part of his silent existence. The legal proceedings began just days later, drawing immediate and intense media attention. George Harding appeared in court, his expression still largely unreadable, flanked by a public defender. The charges were formally read, detailing the murder of Daniel Brooks on May 15, 1987. He entered a plea of not guilty, a predictable but emotionally charged moment for Daniel's family, who sat in the front row, their faces a mixture of sorrow and grim determination. The courtroom was packed with journalists, legal observers, and curious citizens, all eager to witness the opening chapter of a trial that promised to unveil secrets buried for more than 3 decades. The long road to justice, finally, had formally begun, promising a narrative that would capture the heart of the community. The long road to justice, finally, had formally begun, promising a narrative that would capture the heart of the community. As the courtroom doors opened for the preliminary hearings, the true weight of the decades-long mystery began to unfold, slowly, painstakingly, revealing the long-hidden motive behind Daniel Brooks' murder. It was not, as many had speculated, a robbery gone wrong or a professional rivalry. Instead, what emerged from the testimonies and evidence was a deeply personal, chillingly mundane tale of unrequited obsession, misplaced blame, and a simmering resentment that had festered in George Harding's mind for years. The prosecution argued that Harding, a quiet, unassuming man working a dead-end factory job, had developed an unhealthy fixation on Daniel Brooks. He frequented the same small coffee shop near the gallery, where Daniel often worked, silently observing the vibrant photographer, mistaking Daniel's polite, artistic charm for something more intimate. A perceived snub at an earlier gallery event, an everyday interaction interpreted through Harding's distorted lens as a profound personal rejection, ignited a dark fury that led to the tragic night in 1987. He saw Daniel's success not as earned, but as an affront to his own unremarkable existence, fueling a dangerous envy that warped into murderous intent. Witness testimonies were crucial in painting this picture. An elderly barista from the coffee shop, whose memory had been jogged by the news of the arrest, recalled a man matching Harding's description who would sit for hours, almost always alone, intensely watching Daniel. She remembered Daniel, always friendly, once politely excusing himself from a conversation with this quiet man, explaining he had an important meeting. This seemingly trivial exchange, she now believed, had left the man visibly agitated. Another witness, a retired security guard who had worked the gallery circuit, remembered seeing George Harding lingering near the Renwick Gallery on several occasions in the weeks leading up to the murder, often dressed in clothing that appeared to be a work uniform. Both confirmed that Harding seemed to harbor an odd, silent intensity when observing Daniel, a gaze that felt out of place with the casual bustle of the art world. These small, seemingly insignificant details, once dismissed as irrelevant, now wove together a chilling narrative of a stalker evolving into a killer. The forensic evidence presentation was the cornerstone of the prosecution's case, demonstrating how modern science unraveled the decades-old mystery. The unique synthetic fiber, meticulously preserved from Daniel Brooks' clothing, was displayed on large screens, its highly specific composition detailed by expert witnesses. A forensic textile analyst explained that the fiber matched, with overwhelming certainty, the material used in the uniforms worn by maintenance staff at the very factory where George Harding had worked in 1987. This was no mere coincidence. It was a physical link, a silent testament to Harding's presence at the crime scene. Furthermore, despite the age of the evidence, advanced ballistics analysis had conclusively matched the spent bullet casing found at the scene to a specific model of handgun that George Harding had legally purchased and then reported stolen 6 months after Daniel's murder, a report that, in hindsight, appeared to be a calculated attempt to distance himself from the weapon. The sophisticated computer models and microscopic comparisons left little room for doubt, proving a precision that was unimaginable during the initial investigation. The raw emotions displayed by Daniel's family during the trial were palpable, a poignant counterpoint to the clinical presentation of evidence. His aging parents, their faces etched with decades of grief, sat through every harrowing detail, tears often silently streaming down their cheeks as they heard the cold, calculated narrative of their son's final moments. Daniel's sister, whose unwavering advocacy had kept the flame of justice alive, periodically left the courtroom, unable to stomach the grim specifics, but always returned, her resolve unbroken. For them, the trial was not just about legal victory. It was a deeply personal, agonizing replay of their greatest loss, forcing them to relive a nightmare they had only ever dreamt of putting behind them. The court became a crucible, burning away the protective layers of time, exposing the raw wound of their enduring sorrow. The defense strategy, orchestrated by a shrewd public defender, largely aimed at casting doubt on the age of the evidence and the interpretation of Harding's interactions. They argued that the fiber, while unique, could have been transferred from numerous sources over decades, suggesting a contaminated crime scene or innocent contact. They challenged the ballistics match, suggesting that while the weapon type was identified, the specific gun could not definitively be linked to Harding since it was stolen. Furthermore, they portrayed George Harding as a harmless, quiet man, an introvert prone to misinterpretation, rather than a malicious killer. His past employment near the gallery, they contended, was purely coincidental, and his presence at the coffee shop merely a preference for a particular brew, not an obsession. The defense attempted to paint Daniel Brooks' polite interactions as possibly flirtatious, attempting to subtly shift blame and create alternative narratives, hoping to introduce enough reasonable doubt to sway the jury. The public's engagement with the trial was intense. News channels carried daily reports, and online forums buzzed with theories and emotional reactions. The community, having waited for so long, followed every twist and turn with bated breath, hoping that after 36 years, justice would finally be served for Daniel Brooks. The public's engagement with the trial was intense. News channels carried daily reports, and online forums buzzed with theories and emotional reactions. The community, having waited for so long, followed every twist and turn with bated breath, hoping that after 36 years, justice would finally be served for Daniel Brooks. The climax of the trial arrived with the prosecution's closing arguments, a powerful and emotional summation that meticulously wove together every piece of evidence, every witness testimony, into a damning tapestry of George Harding's guilt. The prosecutor, a seasoned veteran, spoke directly to the jury, her voice firm but tinged with the weight of decades of injustice. She presented enlarged photographs of Daniel Brooks, alive and vibrant, juxtaposed against the grim crime scene photos, emphasizing the brutal end to a promising life. She showcased the unique fiber, explaining its specific properties and how it pointed unmistakably to Harding's uniform. Every element, from the ballistics match to the subtle shift in Harding's demeanor during his brief, recorded statements, was presented as undeniable proof. Then, in a move that sent a ripple of murmurs through the packed courtroom, the prosecution played a short, enhanced audio clip from a police interview with Harding conducted weeks after Daniel's murder, an interview that had been dismissed as irrelevant at the time. In it, Harding, seemingly irritated by a line of questioning, muttered under his breath, "He got what he deserved, always looking down on people." Though barely audible, modern audio enhancement technology isolated the phrase, and the prosecutor argued it revealed the festering resentment that had driven the crime. It was a crucial, visceral piece of evidence, a direct window into the killer's mindset, something the defense struggled to counter effectively. The courtroom held its breath, witnessing the culmination of decades of investigative work, all focused on this single, dramatic revelation. After days of intense testimony and the powerful closing arguments, the jury retired for deliberation. The tension in the courthouse became almost unbearable, a thick, palpable anticipation that settled over everyone involved. Daniel's family, exhausted but resolute, huddled together, their faces etched with a mix of fear and fragile hope. They understood that despite the overwhelming evidence, a jury's decision was never truly predictable. Every minute that passed felt like an hour, every hour an eternity. Whispers filled the hallways as reporters speculated, legal experts offered their predictions, and the community waited. The lives of so many hinged on this moment, the culmination of a search for truth that had spanned generations. The weight of 36 years of unanswered questions pressed down on the 12 individuals behind those closed doors, tasked with delivering a verdict that would finally bring resolution, or prolong the anguish. The moment the jury returned, the collective intake of breath in the courtroom was audible. A hush fell, profound and absolute. All eyes were fixed on the jury foreman as the judge asked for their verdict. "We, the jury, find the defendant, George Harding, guilty of the murder of Daniel Brooks." The words rang out, clear and unequivocal. A wave of emotion swept through the courtroom. Daniel's sister sobbed openly, leaning into her parents, who clutched each other tightly, tears of relief and sorrow streaming down their aged faces. There was a quiet murmuring from the gallery, a mix of satisfaction and solemn understanding. George Harding, however, remained impassive, his expression unchanging, a mask of stone even as the word, guilty, sealed his fate. It was a stunning vindication for Daniel's family, an affirmation that their long fight for justice had not been in vain. The aftermath of the verdict was a maelstrom of emotion. For Daniel's family, it brought a complex mix of relief, renewed grief, and an overwhelming sense of validation. The abstract concept of justice had finally materialized, a tangible outcome to their decades of suffering. However, the verdict didn't erase the pain, it merely shifted it, allowing them to finally begin the long, arduous process of truly mourning their beloved Daniel, no longer burdened by the haunting question of who had taken his life. The courtroom, once a place of sterile legal proceedings, became a stage for raw human emotion, a space where decades of pent-up sorrow and anger found release. The community, watching from afar, experienced a collective catharsis, a sense that a dark shadow had finally been lifted from their city's history. Weeks later, the judge delivered the sentence. George Harding, still showing no discernible remorse, was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a sentence that ensured he would spend the remainder of his days behind bars. During the victim impact statements, Daniel's sister, her voice now strong and clear, addressed Harding directly. "You took from us a light, a talent, a future," she stated, her gaze unwavering. "You thought you got away with it, but Daniel's memory, and our love for him, never died. Now you will face the consequences of your cowardly act." Her words, echoing the pain of an entire family, underscored the profound and lasting damage inflicted by a single act of violence. It was a powerful, poignant moment, putting into stark relief the human cost of Harding's crime, decades after it was committed. This case, spanning generations, serves as a profound reflection on the meaning of justice itself. Was it truly served? For Daniel's family, the verdict and sentencing offered a form of closure, a peace that had been denied them for 36 years. But true justice, the return of Daniel's life, remained elusive. Yet, it demonstrated an unwavering belief in accountability, and the relentless pursuit of truth. It proved that even when time blurs memories and evidence grows cold, the possibility of uncovering the truth, and holding perpetrators responsible, can endure. It underscored that justice, though sometimes delayed, may not always be denied, offering a glimmer of hope to countless other families burdened by similar haunting questions and endless waiting. This case, spanning generations, serves as a profound reflection on the meaning of justice itself. Was it truly served? For Daniel's family, the verdict and sentencing offered a form of closure, a peace that had been denied them for 36 years. But true justice, the return of Daniel's life, remained elusive. Yet, it demonstrated an unwavering belief in accountability, and the relentless pursuit of truth. It proved that even when time blurs memories and evidence grows cold, the possibility of uncovering the truth, and holding perpetrators responsible, can endure. It underscored that justice, though sometimes delayed, may not always be denied, offering a glimmer of hope to countless other families burdened by similar, haunting questions and endless waiting. For Daniel Brooks' family and friends, the final outcome of the trial, while not erasing the profound grief, brought an undeniable form of resolution. The gnawing uncertainty, the constant what-ifs that had plagued them for over 3 decades, finally had an answer. It was a bittersweet victory, tinged with the sadness of what could have been, but it was a victory nonetheless. The knowledge that George Harding would spend his remaining days accountable for his actions offered a profound sense of peace. It allowed them to move from an active state of searching for truth to a quiet phase of remembrance, where Daniel's life and art could be celebrated without the pervasive shadow of his unsolved murder. This resolution was not a sudden burst of happiness, but a slow, steady easing of a burden they had carried for far too long, enabling a more peaceful, if still painful, form of closure. The solving of the cold case resonated deeply throughout the Portland community, allowing it to collectively process a tragedy that had lingered in its collective memory for generations. The initial shock of the arrest, followed by the detailed revelations of the trial, provided a narrative closure that had been sorely missing. It was a moment for collective reflection, a chance to mourn not just the loss of Daniel Brooks, but the loss of innocence and security that his unsolved murder had symbolized. The long-awaited justice served as a testament to the community's enduring spirit, demonstrating that even the deepest wounds can eventually begin to heal when truth prevails. It fostered a renewed sense of faith in the justice system and in the power of persistence, reminding everyone that no crime, no matter how old, is truly forgotten. The broader implications of the Daniel Brooks case are significant, extending far beyond the immediate families and community involved. It stands as a powerful testament to the relentless persistence of law enforcement officers like Detective Miller, who refused to let cases gather dust, and to the transformative power of forensic science. The advancements in DNA analysis, ballistics, and trace evidence examination that were instrumental in solving this case offer invaluable lessons for future cold case investigations. It instills hope, not just for families seeking answers, but for investigators across the nation, reminding them that even the most obscure clues can become critical breakthroughs with evolving technology and unwavering dedication. This case underscores the enduring human need for justice and the moral imperative to pursue it, no matter how much time has passed. A final, poignant reflection on Daniel Brooks' legacy reveals a talented artist whose life was tragically cut short, but whose spirit continues to inspire. He will be remembered not merely as a victim, but as a visionary photographer whose unique artistic vision captured the soul of Portland in the 1980s. His vibrant personality, his passion for his craft, and the impact he had on those around him will forever be a part of his story. The resolution of his murder ensures that his memory is honored, not overshadowed by perpetual mystery, but solidified as a testament to the enduring power of art and the enduring value of a life lived with passion. His photographs, once viewed with a wistful sadness, can now be seen through a lens of quiet triumph, knowing that justice, eventually, was served. This case, particularly its dramatic resolution after so many years, has a profound ripple effect. It will undoubtedly inspire other cold case units to revisit old files, to apply new technologies, and to pursue new leads, offering hope to countless other families still searching for answers. It sends a powerful message that perpetrators cannot hide forever, and that the long arm of justice, though sometimes slow, can ultimately reach across decades to hold them accountable. For those living with the anguish of an unsolved crime, the saga of Daniel Brooks serves as a beacon, a symbol of perseverance, and a reminder that even when hope dwindles, the possibility of truth and justice remains. The story of Daniel Brooks is a powerful statement about the importance of never giving up on truth and justice, even when decades pass and memories fade. It is a testament to the fact that every life matters, and every injustice deserves to be addressed. It reminds us that across generations, the human spirit's quest for fairness and accountability will endure, unyielding in its pursuit of what is right. Thank you for watching this emotional journey. If this story touched you, please don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth true crime stories. What other cold cases would you like us to revisit? Let us know in the comments below.